10,000 words in English. Levels from A0 to C2. Part number 19. Welcome to the new series of the Talk English Fluently channel. In this fresh collection, I will be explaining 10,000 words that cover levels from A0 to C2. This is a vast and rich compilation of words that will greatly enhance your English language skills. Please watch the video until the end, and if you have any suggestions for improving future videos in this series, kindly leave them in the comments section. I appreciate your support through comments, likes, and subscribing to my channel. Ready to begin. Let's go. Part number 19. 500 words.
Cinder.
The fire left nothing but cinder and ash.
She carefully stepped over the cinder in the fireplace.
Elemental.
Understanding water is an elemental part of science.
The movie featured a fierce battle with an elemental spirit.
Crest.
They reached the crest of the hill at sunrise.
The family crest was engraved on the ring.
Overtake.
The storm is expected to overtake the coastline by morning.
She managed to overtake the lead runner in the last lap.
Logic.
His logic was difficult to follow during the debate.
She used logic to solve the complex puzzle.
Medium.
The shirt is available in small, medium, and large sizes.
Watercolor is her favorite artistic medium.
Radioactive.
The scientists studied the effects of radioactive materials.
Radioactive waste must be handled with care.
Weird.
He has a weird habit of talking to his plants.
That movie was really weird, but interesting.
Prestige.
The award brought her a lot of prestige.
He attended a university with a high level of prestige.
Circumvent.
He tried to circumvent the traffic by taking a side road.
They found a way to circumvent the security system.
Imam.
The Imam led the prayer at the mosque.
The community respected the Imam's wisdom.
Beret.
The artist was known for always wearing a beret.
She wore a red beret to the party.
Frenetic.
The city's frenetic pace can be overwhelming.
They worked at a frenetic pace to meet the deadline.
Ephemeral.
Ephemeral art installations can be quite striking.
The beauty of the sunset was ephemeral.
Straightforward.
The instructions were clear and straightforward.
He gave a straightforward answer to the question.
Wagon.
The old wagon was still in good condition.
They loaded the wagon with hay.
Valiant.
The knight made a valiant effort to save the princess.
Her valiant struggle against the disease inspired many.
Hilt.
The hilt of the dagger was intricately designed.
He gripped the sword by its hilt.
Verge.
The company is on the verge of a major breakthrough.
She was on the verge of tears after hearing the news.
Jeep.
The Jeep handled the off-road conditions well.
They drove a jeep through the rough terrain.
Lining.
The coat has a soft, warm lining.
She admired the silk lining of her new dress.
Lousy.
The weather was lousy all weekend.
He did a lousy job on the project.
Alligator.
They spotted an alligator in the swamp.
The alligator slowly approached the water's edge.
Sabine.
The Sabine River flows through multiple states.
Sabine enjoyed painting landscapes in her free time.
Interchange.
The interchange on the highway was very busy.
They had a friendly interchange of ideas.
Parish.
She moved to a small parish in the countryside.
The parish gathered for the Sunday service.
Sociology.
He is studying sociology at the university.
Sociology helps us understand social behavior.
Chromium.
The shiny finish on the bike is due to the chromium plating.
Chromium is used in stainless steel production.
Intelligent.
She is very intelligent and always gets top grades.
Intelligent design is a topic of much debate.
Divisive.
Politics can be a divisive topic.
The new policy was highly divisive among the staff.
Fungus.
The damp conditions are perfect for fungus growth.
They treated the plant for a fungus infection.
Liberty.
The statue is a symbol of liberty.
They fought for their liberty and won.
Potassium.
Bananas are a good source of potassium.
Potassium is an essential nutrient for the body.
Reckless.
She made a reckless decision without thinking it through.
His reckless driving caused an accident.
Cannon.
The film is considered part of the Star Wars canon.
He studied the literary canon in his literature class.
Excavate.
They had to excavate a large area for the new building.
Archaeologists will excavate the ancient site next summer.
Column.
The building is supported by a large central column.
She writes a weekly column for the newspaper.
Prompt.
The teacher gave a prompt to start the discussion.
Her prompt response was appreciated.
Dissident.
The dissident was jailed for speaking out against the government.
Dissident voices were heard during the protest.
Condole.
The community gathered to condole with the grieving widow.
They went to condole with the family after the loss.
Weighty.
He made a weighty decision that would affect many lives.
The lawyer presented weighty evidence in the case.
Ferocious.
She faced her challenges with a ferocious determination.
The lion let out a ferocious roar.
Precipitate.
The crisis could precipitate a financial collapse.
His actions will likely precipitate a strong reaction.
Architecture.
He studied architecture in college.
The city is known for its modern architecture.
Tally.
They kept a tally of the votes.
The final tally showed a clear winner.
Deduce.
From the evidence, they could deduce what happened.
Sherlock Holmes can deduce the solution quickly.
Plethora.
There is a plethora of options to choose from.
The article provided a plethora of information.
Credence.
The witness's testimony gave credence to the accusation.
His story gained credence over time.
Perspire.
He began to perspire heavily during the workout.
The hot weather made everyone perspire.
Stroll.
She enjoys a quiet stroll in the evening.
They took a leisurely stroll through the park.
Tee.
He placed the ball on the tee before his golf swing.
She bought a new tee for her golf game.
Comprehensive.
They conducted a comprehensive review of the policies.
The report was comprehensive and covered all aspects.
Donkey.
The farmer used a donkey to carry the load.
The donkey brayed loudly in the field.
Romanesque.
Romanesque architecture features thick walls and round arches.
The church has a beautiful Romanesque facade.
Nutty.
The bread has a delicious nutty flavor.
He had a nutty idea that surprisingly worked.
Photocopy.
She handed him a photocopy of the agreement.
Please make a photocopy of this document.
Radiate.
The sun will radiate heat and light.
She seemed to radiate happiness wherever she went.
Crickets.
We could hear the crickets chirping outside.
The sound of crickets filled the night air.
Prospect.
The prospect of a promotion excited him.
They are exploring the prospect of opening a new store.
Linger.
The smell of flowers would linger in the room.
She liked to linger over her morning coffee.
Prejudice.
They faced prejudice because of their background.
Prejudice can lead to unfair treatment.
Overlay.
She placed a clear overlay on the document for protection.
The map had an overlay showing the proposed routes.
Collateral.
He used his house as collateral for the loan.
Collateral damage from the storm was extensive.
Contaminant.
They removed the contaminant from the soil.
The water was tested for any contaminant.
Municipal.
The municipal government is responsible for local services.
They attended a meeting at the municipal building.
Timid.
Her timid smile showed her shyness.
The child was too timid to speak up.
overcome,
She worked hard to overcome her fears.
He managed to overcome the obstacles in his way.
heal,
He injured his heel during the hike.
She wore shoes with a low heel.
spontaneous,
Their trip was a spontaneous decision.
She gave a spontaneous applause after the performance.
saturate,
They need to saturate the cloth with water.
The rain will saturate the ground.
typify,
These characteristics typify the species.
The building's design will typify the new architecture style.
linear,
He prefers a linear approach to problem solving.
The graph shows a linear relationship between the variables.
insert,
Please insert the key to start the car.
He decided to insert a new paragraph into the essay.
trustworthy,
They needed a trustworthy person to handle the finances.
She is a trustworthy friend.
protagonist,
The protagonist of the story is a young girl.
He played the protagonist in the school play.
poise,
His poise under pressure was impressive.
She handled the situation with great poise.
esquire,
He addressed the lawyer as Mr. Smith, Esquire.
The letter was marked John Doe, Esquire.
admiralty,
He worked in the Admiralty during his military career.
The Admiralty oversees the Navy's operations.
embargo,
The country imposed an embargo on foreign goods.
The embargo affected the economy significantly.
galactic,
The galactic center is full of stars and cosmic dust.
They are studying galactic formations in the universe.
fame,
She achieved fame as a talented singer.
His fame grew after the successful movie.
Lenient.
They hoped for a lenient sentence from the judge.
The teacher was lenient with the late assignments.
Despite.
They succeeded despite the challenges.
She remained calm despite the chaos around her.
Cue.
She took his yawn as a cue to end the meeting.
The actor waited for his cue to enter the stage.
Unravel.
She tried to unravel the mystery on her own.
The sweater began to unravel at the seam.
Encumber.
The heavy backpack will encumber your movements.
He did not want to encumber her with his problems.
Deliberate.
He made a deliberate attempt to improve his grades.
They held a deliberate discussion about the issue.
Serene.
She felt serene after the yoga class.
The lake was calm and serene at sunset.
Paraphrase.
Can you paraphrase this paragraph for clarity?
He tried to paraphrase the complex text.
Senile.
Senile dementia affects many older adults.
The elderly man showed signs of being senile.
Quell.
They tried to quell the rumors quickly.
The police were called to quell the disturbance.
Secular.
Secular music is enjoyed by people of all religions.
The festival has a secular theme this year.
Devoid.
His voice was devoid of emotion.
The desert landscape was devoid of vegetation.
Optimize.
The software will help optimize your computer's performance.
They need to optimize the process for better efficiency.
Proviso.
He agreed to the deal with one proviso.
Contract included a proviso for early termination.
Insomnia.
Insomnia kept him awake most nights.
She struggles with chronic insomnia.
Glean.
They tried to glean information from the report.
She managed to glean some useful tips from the meeting.
Acclaim.
The author's new book won wide acclaim.
The movie received critical acclaim.
Amp.
He turned up the amp to play the guitar louder.
The band's amp malfunctioned during the concert.
Mogul.
He became a real estate mogul in his 30s.
The media mogul owns several television networks.
Nettle.
Be careful not to touch the nettle plant. It can cause a rash.
The nettle tea has a soothing effect.
Shawl.
The colorful shawl was handwoven by artisans.
She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders to keep warm.
Plot.
The book's plot was full of unexpected twists.
They decided to plot a surprise party for their friend.
Occident.
The oxidant can cause materials to corrode over time.
Oxygen acts as a powerful oxidant in many chemical reactions.
Sympathy.
She expressed her sympathy for the family's loss.
He showed great sympathy for the victims of the disaster.
Satellite.
They used satellite imagery to study the weather patterns.
The satellite orbits the Earth every 90 minutes.
Sulk.
He began to sulk when he didn't get his way.
She tried to cheer him up, but he continued to sulk.
Reptile.
The reptile basked in the sun to warm itself.
The zoo has a large collection of reptile species.
Sweater.
She wore a cozy sweater on the chilly day.
The sweater shrank after being washed in hot water.
Subterranean.
Subterranean tunnels were used during the war.
The workers explored the subterranean cave system.
Barn.
The farmer stored hay in the large barn.
The old barn was converted into a workshop.
Herd.
They tried to herd the sheep into the pen.
The herd of cows grazed in the meadow.
Declare.
He stood up to declare his intentions.
The president will declare a state of emergency.
Informative.
She found the lecture informative and engaging.
The documentary was very informative.
Pour.
He examined the rock sample with a microscope to see its pore structure.
She loves to pore over old maps in her spare time.
Impeach.
The committee will vote on whether to impeach the president.
The government decided to impeach the corrupt official.
Confidence.
She spoke with confidence during the presentation.
Gaining confidence takes practice and experience.
Fiery.
His fiery speech ignited the crowd's enthusiasm.
The chef prepared a fiery salsa for the guests.
Reception.
They held the wedding reception at a beautiful venue.
The phone's reception was poor in the remote area.
Strew.
He likes to strew flower petals on the table for decoration.
The wind began to strew leaves across the yard.
Lesion.
The doctor examined the lesion on his skin.
The MRI scan revealed a small lesion in the brain.
Bald.
The mountain's bald peak was visible from miles away.
He began to go bald in his early 40s.
Antibody.
The vaccine helps the body produce antibodies.
They conducted tests to measure the antibody levels.
Relay.
He needed to relay the message quickly to his team.
The runners competed in a 4x100-meter relay.
Bustle.
The city was full of hustle and bustle.
She loved the bustle of the busy marketplace.
Vernacular.
She spoke in the vernacular of her hometown.
The book was written in the local vernacular.
Catwalk.
Models strutted down the catwalk during Fashion Week.
The workers used a catwalk to access the high beams.
Pond.
They enjoyed picnicking by the pond on weekends.
Ducks swam peacefully in the pond.
Derail.
The storm caused the train to derail.
He tried to derail the meeting with irrelevant questions.
Submission.
Her submission to the contest was highly praised.
The deadline for paper submission is next week.
Resort.
They stayed at a luxury resort by the beach.
In a crisis, they might resort to drastic measures.
Apostle.
She was an apostle of the new scientific theory.
Paul is known as an apostle in the New Testament.
Correspond.
They continue to correspond by email.
The figures correspond to the data from last year.
Harp.
He tends to harp on the same topic repeatedly.
She played a beautiful melody on the harp.
Wherein.
The contract clause, wherein the terms are stated, is crucial.
The novel reached a point wherein the plot took an unexpected turn.
Electorate.
The electorate's decision will shape the country's future.
The candidate worked hard to win over the electorate.
Circus.
They took their children to see the circus.
The media circus around the trial was intense.
Dioxin.
They are studying the effects of dioxin on human health.
Dioxin is a toxic chemical often found in industrial waste.
Sash.
She wore a blue sash with her graduation gown.
The window sash was painted white.
Outing.
The company organized an outing for its employees.
They planned a family outing to the zoo.
Reticence.
Her reticence made it difficult to get to know her.
He overcame his reticence and spoke up during the meeting.
Omega.
The symbol omega represents the end in Greek alphabet.
Omega-3 fatty acids are important for heart health.
Glare.
The bright glare of the sun made it hard to see.
He gave her a sharp glare during the argument.
Or.
The boat moved smoothly with each pull of the oar.
He lost his grip on the oar while rowing.
Permit.
You need a permit to park in this area.
They won't permit smoking inside the building.
Profile.
The journalist wrote a detailed profile of the famous actor.
She updated her social media profile with new information.
Disembark.
The passengers began to disembark from the plane.
They were eager to disembark after the long journey.
Discernible.
There was no discernible change in his behavior.
The difference in quality was easily discernible.
Diaspora.
The Jewish diaspora has spread across many countries.
The African diaspora has a rich cultural heritage.
Logo.
The logo is instantly recognizable worldwide.
The company unveiled its new logo today.
Caper.
The movie is about a hilarious heist caper.
The kids decided to caper around the yard.
Expropriate.
They fought against attempts to expropriate their property.
The government decided to expropriate the land for public use.
Kinetic.
The sculpture captures the sense of kinetic energy.
The kinetic art installation moved with the wind.
Wholesale.
The company specializes in wholesale distribution.
They purchase the goods at wholesale prices.
Oscillate.
The fan began to oscillate from side to side.
Her mood seemed to oscillate between joy and despair.
Marshal.
They needed to marshal their resources for the project.
The marshal led the parade through the town.
Sibling.
She has one older sibling and one younger sibling.
Sibling rivalry is common in many families.
Fertile.
She had a fertile imagination, always coming up with new ideas.
The farmers worked hard to maintain fertile soil.
Autograph.
The fans lined up to get his autograph.
She has a collection of autographs from famous authors.
Aquifer.
They drilled a well to access the aquifer.
The town relies on an underground aquifer for its water supply.
Romanticism.
Romanticism in literature often emphasizes emotion and nature.
The painting is a beautiful example of romanticism.
Redemption.
They seek redemption for their past mistakes.
The movie is a story of hope and redemption.
Incise.
The artist decided to incise the design into the wood.
The surgeon will incise the tissue carefully.
Glitz.
She loved the glitz of the city's nightlife.
The event was full of Hollywood glitz and glamour.
Infrastructure.
The country invested heavily in its infrastructure.
Infrastructure improvements are needed for better transportation.
Terminus.
The bus terminus was crowded with passengers.
The train reached its final terminus after a long journey.
Cumulative.
The cumulative effect of his efforts was impressive.
They measured the cumulative rainfall over the month.
Annuity.
They invested in an annuity for future financial security.
He receives a fixed annuity each month.
Oral.
The concert provided an oral delight.
Oral skills are important for musicians.
Volley.
The soldiers responded with a volley of gunfire.
They practiced their volley during the tennis lesson.
Celery.
She added chopped celery to the salad.
Celery is a low-calorie vegetable.
Grouse.
He likes to grouse about the weather.
The hunters went looking for grouse in the forest.
Dizzy.
The ride made her feel dizzy.
He became dizzy after spinning around too quickly.
Disloyal.
Disloyal actions can damage relationships.
They accused him of being disloyal to the team.
Forthright.
She was known for her forthright opinions.
His forthright approach made him many friends and some enemies.
Sift.
They will sift through the evidence to find the truth.
She used a sieve to sift the flour.
Hermeneutic.
The scholar's hermeneutic analysis provided new insights.
Hermeneutic methods are essential in theological studies.
Lapse.
There was a lapse in the conversation as they thought.
He apologized for his lapse in judgment.
Spatial.
His spatial awareness helps him excel in sports.
The artist has a keen sense of spatial relationships.
Colorectal.
The hospital specializes in colorectal surgery.
Regular screenings can help prevent colorectal cancer.
Rouge.
She applied a touch of rouge to her cheeks.
The actress wore bright rouge for the role.
Soda.
Soda is a popular drink at parties.
He opened a can of soda with a fizz.
Differential.
The mechanic checked the car's differential.
There is a significant differential in their salaries.
Ruby.
The sunset turned the sky a deep ruby color.
She admired the ruby in her new ring.
Oriented.
The program is oriented towards young professionals.
He felt disoriented in the new city.
Enliven.
Her stories always enliven the conversation.
The music will enliven the party.
Domesticate.
They decided to domesticate the wildcat.
Dogs were among the first animals to domesticate.
Refresh.
He hit the button to refresh the web page.
She took a nap to refresh herself.
Abundant.
The garden had an abundant harvest this year.
Wildlife is abundant in the national park.
Shrine.
The shrine was adorned with flowers and candles.
They visited the shrine to pay their respects.
Assay.
The lab will assay the mineral sample.
The assay revealed a high concentration of gold.
Obstinate.
The obstinate child refused to eat his vegetables.
He remained obstinate despite their arguments.
Revise.
She decided to revise her essay before submitting it.
They will revise the schedule to accommodate everyone.
Dismiss.
He chose to dismiss the idea as impractical.
The teacher decided to dismiss the class early.
Forestall.
The medication will forestall the onset of symptoms.
They took steps to forestall further problems.
Admission.
His admission to the school was a proud moment.
The museum charges a small fee for admission.
Kidding.
He was just kidding about the surprise party.
Stop kidding around and get serious.
Feral.
They found a feral animal in the forest.
The feral cat roamed the alleyways at night.
Frail.
The elderly woman appeared frail, but was very alert.
The frail bridge swayed in the wind.
Ethnic.
They celebrated their ethnic heritage with a festival.
The city is known for its ethnic diversity.
Aggravate.
Loud noises tend to aggravate his headache.
Scratching the insect bite will only aggravate it.
Gymnastics.
The gymnastics competition was held at the local arena.
She practices gymnastics 3 times a week.
Nevertheless.
The weather was cold. Nevertheless, they went for a walk.
She was tired. Nevertheless, she finished her homework.
Chap.
He's a friendly chap with a big smile.
The cold wind can chap your lips.
Baptize.
They decided to baptize their child at the local church.
The priest will baptize the new believers this Sunday.
Aghast.
He looked aghast when he saw the damage to his car.
She was aghast at the news of the accident.
Chastise.
The teacher had to chastise the students for being late.
He did not chastise his son for the mistake, but used it as a lesson.
Extricate.
She tried to extricate herself from the awkward situation.
The firefighter managed to extricate the kitten from the tree.
Genial.
The host was genial and made everyone feel welcome.
His genial smile put everyone at ease.
Arthritis.
The doctor prescribed medication to help manage his arthritis.
She struggles with arthritis in her hands.
Communal.
They enjoy the communal garden in their neighborhood.
The villagers hold a communal feast every year.
Flask.
The scientist carefully measured the liquid into the flask.
She carried a flask of hot coffee in her bag.
Propagate.
They propagate their favorite plants by taking cuttings.
The rumor began to propagate rapidly through the office.
Ripe.
He waited until the time was ripe to make his move.
The tomatoes are ripe and ready to be picked.
Do.
The hairstylist gave her a new do for the event.
She admired the fancy do the bride was sporting.
Pungent.
The pungent aroma of garlic filled the kitchen.
The cheese has a very pungent smell.
Abrasive.
The cleaner has an abrasive texture to remove stains.
His abrasive manner often offends people.
Dislodge.
The force of the water can dislodge even the largest rocks.
They used a stick to dislodge the kite from the tree.
Gala.
They attended a charity gala last weekend.
The gala was a grand celebration with music and dancing.
Coerce.
She felt coerced into agreeing with their demands.
They tried to coerce him into signing the contract.
Poster.
She hung a poster of her favorite band on the wall.
The event was advertised with a large poster in the town square.
Unwind.
The vacation helped them unwind from their busy lives.
She likes to unwind with a good book after work.
Avow.
He chose to avow his love for her in a public speech.
They decided to avow their commitment to the cause.
Silica.
They used silica gel packets to keep the products dry.
Silica is a major component of sand.
Reprieve.
The governor granted a reprieve to the condemned prisoner.
The rainy day gave them a reprieve from the heat.
Chef.
She wants to become a professional chef when she grows up.
The chef prepared a delicious meal for the guests.
Ammonia.
They used ammonia to clean the stained floor.
Ammonia has a strong, pungent smell.
Network.
The TV network aired a new series last night.
He joined a professional network to advance his career.
Critique.
The teacher asked the students to critique each other's work.
Her critique of the film was both insightful and fair.
Mackerel.
Grilled mackerel is a popular dish in many coastal regions.
They caught a large mackerel during their fishing trip.
Stagnate.
Without fresh ideas, the project will stagnate.
Water can stagnate and become a breeding ground for mosquitoes.
Mixture.
The new song is a mixture of different musical styles.
The recipe calls for a mixture of flour, sugar, and eggs.
Prodigious.
He has a prodigious talent for playing the piano.
The construction of the bridge was a prodigious feat of engineering.
Chug.
The old train continued to chug along the tracks.
He began to chug the bottle of water after the race.
Temporary.
She took a temporary job during the summer.
The repairs are only a temporary solution.
Etiquette.
She studied business etiquette before her first meeting.
Proper etiquette is important at formal dinners.
Sermon.
The pastor delivered an inspiring sermon on kindness.
His long sermon about responsibility bored the children.
Procession.
They watched the procession of floats during the parade.
The wedding procession moved slowly down the aisle.
Barrier.
The barrier was put up to keep the crowd back.
Language can be a barrier to communication.
Immigrant.
Immigrant families bring diverse cultures to their communities.
The new immigrant quickly adapted to life in the city.
Superconducting.
Scientists are researching superconducting materials for advanced technology.
Superconducting magnets are used in MRI machines.
Scholarship.
His excellent grades earned him a full scholarship.
She received a scholarship to attend the university.
Tranquil.
The tranquil garden is perfect for meditation.
She enjoyed the tranquil atmosphere of the countryside.
Dispatch.
He read the news dispatch with great interest.
The police will dispatch officers to the scene.
Bride.
The bride looked stunning in her wedding dress.
The bride and groom exchanged vows under a floral arch.
Hectic.
The office was particularly hectic on Monday morning.
They had a hectic schedule during the holidays.
Forensic.
The forensic team collected evidence from the crime scene.
Forensic science plays a crucial role in solving crimes.
Hopper.
He watched the grasshopper hop across the field.
The grain was poured into the hopper for processing.
Whisk.
She used a whisk to beat the eggs.
He began to whisk the cream until it was fluffy.
Gracious.
She gave a gracious response to the compliment.
The host was gracious and made everyone feel welcome.
Rein.
He held the horse's rein firmly.
She decided to rein in her spending habits.
Permeate.
His influence seemed to permeate every part of the organization.
The smell of baking bread began to permeate the house.
Headland.
They hiked to the top of the headland for a better view.
The lighthouse is situated on a rocky headland.
Antagonize.
She didn't want to antagonize her friend with the disagreement.
His rude comments served to antagonize his coworkers.
Geriatric.
The geriatric ward specializes in elderly care.
He is a geriatric patient with multiple health issues.
Laughter.
The comedian's jokes were met with uproarious laughter.
Their laughter echoed through the park.
Ancestry.
He traced his ancestry back to the early settlers.
Her ancestry includes a mix of different cultures.
Wary.
They were wary of the dog's aggressive behavior.
She was wary of strangers offering help.
Precept.
He lived by the precept that honesty is the best policy.
The school's precept emphasized respect and kindness.
Slap.
The movie received a slap from critics for its poor plot.
She gave him a playful slap on the shoulder.
Vehement.
He made a vehement argument against the proposal.
Her vehement denial convinced everyone of her innocence.
Scab.
The scab formed quickly over the cut.
He picked at the scab on his knee.
Biology.
She is studying biology at the university.
They learned about cell division in biology class.
Cylinder.
They used a metal cylinder to store the gas.
The car engine has a faulty cylinder.
Pursuit.
They are in pursuit of the suspect.
The pursuit of knowledge is a lifelong journey.
Reel.
The movie reel jammed in the projector.
He used a reel to wind up the fishing line.
Cunning.
The fox is known for its cunning nature.
His cunning plan worked perfectly.
Glen.
The glen was surrounded by towering mountains.
They walked through the peaceful glen.
Maximize.
They aim to maximize their profits this year.
She tried to maximize her study time before the exam.
Static.
His hair stood up due to the static electricity.
The radio was full of static.
Dynamism.
The CEO's dynamism transformed the company.
She admired the dynamism of the city's art scene.
Immigrate.
Many people immigrate to seek new opportunities.
They decided to immigrate to Canada for a better life.
Disquiet.
There was a sense of disquiet among the villagers.
The news caused disquiet in the community.
Firth.
The Firth was known for its stunning views and clear waters.
They sailed across the Firth to reach the island.
Subservient.
He refused to be subservient to anyone.
The employees were expected to be subservient to their boss.
Net.
She scored a goal by kicking the ball into the net.
The fishermen cast their net into the sea.
Fiend.
He acted like a fiend when he didn't get his way.
The villain in the story was a true fiend.
Miscarry.
The plan started to miscarry due to poor execution.
She was devastated to miscarry her baby.
Fixate.
He tends to fixate on minor details.
She was fixated on the idea of perfection.
Compromise.
Compromise is essential in a healthy relationship.
They reached a compromise after a long discussion.
Amalgam.
The sculpture was an amalgam of different materials.
The band's music is an amalgam of various styles.
Bosom.
They were bosom friends since childhood.
She held the baby close to her bosom.
Adorn.
They adorned the hall with beautiful decorations.
The crown was adorned with precious gems.
Holster.
He reached for the holster on his belt.
The sheriff put his gun back in its holster.
Sigma.
Sigma is the 18th letter of the Greek alphabet.
They calculated the standard deviation using the sigma symbol.
Bronze.
She won a bronze medal in the competition.
The statue was made of bronze.
Nip.
The cold air began to nip at their fingers.
The puppy liked to nip at their heels playfully.
Conquer.
He worked hard to conquer his fears.
They planned to conquer the highest mountain.
Arrogant.
His arrogant attitude made him unpopular.
She was too arrogant to admit her mistake.
Lavatory.
He excused himself to use the lavatory.
The airplane lavatory was very small.
jog,
She goes for a jog every morning.
He decided to jog to the park instead of driving.
primary,
The primary reason for the change was efficiency.
Reading is a primary skill taught in schools.
daunt,
The challenge did not daunt her.
He was daunted by the size of the task ahead.
firework,
The firework exploded in a burst of colors.
They watched the firework display on New Year's Eve.
blithe,
Her blithe spirit lifted everyone's mood.
He took a blithe approach to the difficult problem.
budge,
She refused to budge on her decision.
The door was stuck and wouldn't budge.
incentive,
The company offers incentives to motivate employees.
He had no incentive to finish the project early.
parsley,
Parsley is often used as a garnish in cooking.
She sprinkled fresh parsley on the dish.
incumbent,
The incumbent mayor is running for re-election.
It is incumbent upon you to complete the assignment.
hymn,
The choir performed a beautiful hymn.
They sang a hymn during the church service.
oversized,
The oversized chair was too big for the small living room.
He wore an oversized jacket that made him look even smaller.
affinity,
Their shared affinity for hiking brought them closer together.
She has a strong affinity for classical music.
hierarchy,
The company's hierarchy was clearly defined in the organizational chart.
In the animal kingdom, a hierarchy determines social standing.
liquidate,
They decided to liquidate their assets to pay off the debt.
The store had to liquidate its inventory after going out of business.
Burrow.
She lives in a quiet borough on the outskirts of the city.
Each borough has its own unique character and attractions.
Clan.
The Scottish clan was known for its tartan patterns.
The clan gathered for their annual family reunion.
Brusque.
His brusque manner often offended people.
She gave a brusque reply and walked away.
Philosophy.
The professor taught ancient Greek philosophy.
His philosophy on life is to always stay positive.
Gulp.
He took a gulp of water after running.
She felt nervous and took a big gulp before speaking.
Mitochondria.
The scientist studied the function of mitochondria in muscle cells.
Mitochondria are known as the powerhouses of the cell.
Link.
Can you send me the link to that article?
The two events are directly linked to each other.
Kite.
She bought a new kite at the store.
The children flew their kite high in the sky.
Kitten.
The kitten played with a ball of yarn.
They adopted a cute little kitten from the shelter.
Conclusive.
The study provided conclusive proof of the theory.
The DNA evidence was conclusive and solved the case.
Spit.
He had to spit out the bitter medicine.
The camel can spit quite a distance.
Conservative.
She dressed in a conservative outfit for the meeting.
He has conservative views on economic policy.
Bulletin.
The school posted the results on the bulletin board.
A news bulletin interrupted the regular broadcast.
Antigen.
The test detected the presence of the antigen in the blood.
The vaccine introduces an antigen to stimulate the immune response.
Measles.
Measles is a highly contagious viral infection.
The child was vaccinated against measles.
Dart.
The cat made a dart for the open door.
He threw the dart and hit the bullseye.
Sizable.
They made a sizable donation to the charity.
The house has a sizable backyard.
Asylum.
She applied for political asylum to escape persecution.
The refugees sought asylum in a neighboring country.
Cuff.
He rolled up his sleeves and buttoned the cuff.
The police put handcuffs on the suspect.
Consume.
The fire will consume all the dry wood.
Americans consume a lot of fast food.
Prolong.
They decided to prolong their vacation by a few days.
The medicine can help prolong the patient's life.
Choral.
She joined the school's choral club.
The choral group performed at the concert.
Eastern.
The eastern sky was lit up by the rising sun.
They are planning a trip to the eastern coast.
Denounce.
Activists denounce the use of fossil fuels.
The mayor publicly denounced the corruption.
Sigh.
She let out a sigh of relief.
He heard a soft sigh from the next room.
Embankment.
The embankment prevented the floodwaters from spreading.
They walked along the river embankment.
Hoard.
He has a tendency to hoard old newspapers.
The squirrel hoards nuts for the winter.
Hyperbole.
The commercial was full of hyperbole about the product's effectiveness.
Her claim of having 1,000,000 friends was pure hyperbole.
Sprain.
She had to rest after spraining her ankle.
He got a sprain from playing basketball.
Tuber.
Farmers harvested the tuber in the fall.
The potato is a type of tuber.
Prudent.
It is prudent to save money for emergencies.
He made a prudent decision after considering all the risks.
Handbook.
She consulted the handbook for guidance.
The student handbook outlines the school rules.
Sublime.
The view from the mountaintop was sublime.
The artist captured the sublime beauty of nature.
Fluoride.
The toothpaste contains fluoride for dental health.
Fluoride is added to drinking water to prevent cavities.
Autonomy.
The region gained autonomy after years of struggle.
Employees are given autonomy to make decisions.
Showbiz.
Showbiz can be a tough industry to break into.
He always dreamed of making it big in showbiz.
Tripod.
She set up the camera on a tripod.
The tripod kept the telescope steady.
Infuse.
They hope to infuse the teen with new energy.
The chef will infuse the oil with garlic.
Tadpole.
The pond was full of tiny tadpoles.
The children watched the tadpole grow into a frog.
Disprove.
The evidence helped disprove the accusations.
Scientists worked to disprove the old theory.
Patrician.
He came from a patrician family with a long history.
The patrician class often had significant political influence.
Rectangle.
The garden is shaped like a rectangle.
She drew a rectangle on the board.
Ebb.
The tide began to ebb after reaching its peak.
His enthusiasm started to ebb as the project dragged on.
Chromosome.
Chromosome abnormalities can lead to genetic disorders.
Each human cell contains 46 chromosomes.
Beech.
The beech tree has smooth, gray bark.
They had a picnic under the shade of a beech.
Increment.
They increased the dosage in small increments.
The salary increment will take effect next month.
Turnover.
The company had a high employee turnover rate.
They aimed to improve turnover by increasing customer satisfaction.
Outright.
They bought the car outright without financing.
She outright refused to attend the meeting.
Meddle.
He told her not to meddle in his affairs.
Meddling in other people's business can cause problems.
Concoct.
They concocted a plan to surprise their friend.
She concocted a delicious soup from leftovers.
Response.
Her response to the question was insightful.
The emergency response team arrived quickly.
Noble.
She comes from a noble family with a long history.
The knight was known for his noble deeds.
Junk.
The garage was full of old junk.
They decided to get rid of all the junk in their basement.
Tendril.
She brushed a tendril of hair out of her face.
The plant's tendril wrapped around the trellis.
Churn.
The boat's engine churned the water.
He felt his stomach churn with anxiety.
Pulp.
They used wood pulp to make paper.
The fruit's pulp was sweet and juicy.
Prim.
She always dressed in a very prim and proper manner.
His prim behavior made him seem old-fashioned.
Inexorable.
Despite their pleas, the decision was inexorable.
The inexorable march of time affects us all.
Ankle.
She twisted her ankle while jogging.
The doctor bandaged his sprained ankle.
Groan.
The old floorboards began to groan under their weight.
He let out a groan of frustration.
Vessel.
The ship was a large cargo vessel.
Blood flows through every vessel in the body.
Throb.
The music made the whole room throb with energy.
He felt a sharp throb in his injured finger.
Mania.
His latest mania is collecting rare coins.
The mania for the new video game swept across the school.
Inscrutable.
The ancient text remained inscrutable to the scholars.
Her expression was inscrutable, revealing nothing.
Orb.
The wizard gazed into the glowing orb.
The full moon appeared as a bright orb in the sky.
Sheen.
Her hair had a healthy sheen after the treatment.
The car's paint had a beautiful sheen.
Unitary.
The country adopted a unitary system of government.
They worked towards a unitary goal in the project.
Chic.
The cafe had a chic, modern decor.
She looked very chic in her new dress.
Fiddle.
He learned to play the fiddle from his grandfather.
She likes to fiddle with her hair when she's nervous.
Rodent.
They set traps to catch the rodent in the attic.
The small rodent scurried across the floor.
Curt.
His curt reply made her feel unwelcome.
She gave a curt nod and walked away.
Moan.
The wind began to moan through the trees.
He let out a moan of pain after falling.
Have.
We need to have the recipe for the smaller group.
She decided to have the sandwich and share it.
Swathe.
They saw a swathe of destruction after the storm.
The doctor will swab the wound with a bandage.
Nucleus.
The nucleus is the control center of the cell.
The family is the nucleus of society.
Rescue.
The Coast Guard launched a rescue mission.
The firefighters managed to rescue the trapped cat.
Phobia.
She has a phobia of spiders.
His phobia of heights prevented him from climbing.
Sabbath.
On the Sabbath, they refrained from work and rest.
They observe the Sabbath every Saturday.
Constipate.
Eating too much cheese can constipate some people.
The doctor advised against foods that constipate.
Dab.
He put a dab of paint on the canvas.
She used a tissue to dab at her tears.
Harmonies.
The choir sang in beautiful harmonies.
They practiced their harmonies for the performance.
Clown.
He dressed up as a clown for Halloween.
The clown made everyone laugh at the party.
Mutual.
They have a mutual interest in photography.
The agreement was based on mutual respect.
Regime.
He follows a strict fitness regime.
The new regime promised to improve the economy.
Macro.
They studied the macro trends in the economy.
She took a macro photo of the flower.
Shank.
The chef used a lamb shank for the recipe.
He injured the shank of his leg.
numb,
Her fingers were numb from the cold.
The dentist used anesthesia to numb the pain.
courtyard,
The hotel room overlooked a beautiful courtyard.
The children played in the courtyard of the building.
abet,
He was accused of aiding and abetting the criminal.
She refused to abet his illegal activities.
scavenge,
They scavenged materials to build their shelter.
The birds scavenge for food in the park.
overboard,
He accidentally dropped his phone overboard.
They went overboard with the party decorations.
posit,
The theory was posited by a famous philosopher.
He posits that all humans are inherently good.
idiosyncratic,
Her idiosyncratic style made her stand out.
He has an idiosyncratic way of speaking.
pedal,
He used the pedal to control the piano's volume.
She pressed the pedal to accelerate the car.
contravene,
The actions contravene the terms of the agreement.
He was fined for contravening the building regulations.
beetle,
They studied the beetle as part of their biology project.
The beetle crawled across the garden path.
hippie,
The hippie wore bright, colorful clothes to the festival.
They admired the hippies' laid-back lifestyle.
scoop,
The reporter got the inside scoop on the latest news.
She used a large spoon to scoop the ice cream.
technique,
The artist's painting technique was unique and captivating.
He mastered a new technique for playing the guitar.
antagonist,
Every good book needs a strong antagonist to create tension.
The antagonist in the story caused a lot of trouble for the hero.
Aspirin.
She took an aspirin to relieve her headache.
Aspirin is often used to reduce fever and pain.
Accessory.
The phone accessory made it easier to hold the device.
She bought a new accessory to match her dress.
Archetype.
The hero archetype is common in many stories.
She's an archetype of a successful entrepreneur.
Urban.
Urban living offers many conveniences and amenities.
They moved to an urban area for better job opportunities.
Nozzle.
The hose nozzle was adjusted to spray a fine mist.
She cleaned the nozzle to ensure the spray was even.
Discourage.
They tried to discourage him from taking unnecessary risks.
His harsh words did nothing to discourage her from pursuing her dream.
Custodian.
The custodian cleaned the classrooms after school.
He worked as a custodian in the office building.
Hitherto.
The book revealed facts hitherto unknown to the public.
Hitherto, the research had not considered this factor.
Spawn.
The rainy season can spawn numerous mosquitoes.
The new policy might spawn a series of changes in the company.
Fair.
They enjoyed a delicious fare at the local restaurant.
The bus fare increased by 50 cents.
Triplet.
She gave birth to healthy triplet boys.
The musical piece featured a fast triplet rhythm.
Specify.
The instructions specify how to assemble the furniture.
Please specify your dietary preferences on the form.
Implement.
They decided to implement the new strategy next month.
The farm tool is a useful implement for digging.
Disillusion.
The experience left her disillusioned with the industry.
He felt a sense of disillusion after learning the truth.
Edible.
These mushrooms are edible and safe to eat.
The flowers were beautiful and also edible.
Feign.
She decided to feign illness to avoid the meeting.
He tried to feign interest in the boring lecture.
Dent.
The hailstorm left a dent in the car roof.
He accidentally put a dent in the table with the hammer.
Metaphysic.
His interests in metaphysics led him to study philosophy.
They discuss the metaphysic of existence over coffee.
Stratosphere.
The plane flew high into the stratosphere.
Temperatures dropped significantly in the stratosphere.
Gospel.
She reads a passage from the Gospel every morning.
They sang a beautiful gospel song at the church service.
Upcoming.
They are excited about the upcoming concert.
The upcoming election has everyone talking.
Cypress.
Cypress wood is known for its durability.
The old cypress tree stood tall by the lake.
Relent.
After hours of debate, he finally relented.
She refused to relent on her strict policies.
March.
They marched through the streets in protest.
The soldiers marched in perfect unison.
Mute.
He pressed mute during the phone call to avoid background noise.
The character in the play was mute, but expressive.
Prop.
He used a stick to prop open the window.
The director used a chair as a prop in the scene.
Edition.
She bought the latest edition of the magazine.
The book's first edition is now a collector's item.
Contraption.
The strange contraption made everyone curious.
He built a complex contraption to automate the task.
Naturalize.
They plan to naturalize the immigrants as citizens.
The botanist worked to naturalize the foreign plant species.
Carbohydrate.
Athletes often eat a high carbohydrate diet for energy.
Bread is a good source of carbohydrate.
Hinge.
The door squeaked because of a rusty hinge.
They installed a new hinge on the cabinet.
Vigil.
The community held a candlelight vigil for the victims.
They kept a vigil by the bedside of the sick child.
Decelerate.
The driver began to decelerate as the traffic light turned red.
The spaceship will decelerate as it approaches the planet.
Flurry.
A sudden flurry of snow surprised the hikers.
There was a flurry of activity before the event.
Pathology.
He studied pathology to understand diseases.
The pathology report confirmed the diagnosis.
Hydraulic.
They fixed the hydraulic system on the machine.
The hydraulic lift made it easy to move heavy objects.
Inversion.
An inversion in the weather pattern caused unexpected rain.
The gymnast performed an impressive inversion.
Rupture.
He suffered a rupture in a blood vessel.
The pipe's rupture caused a major water leak.
Assiduous.
She was assiduous in her studies and earned top grades.
The assiduous worker completed the project ahead of schedule.
Err.
He admitted he did err in his judgment.
To err is human, to forgive, divine.
Leader.
She drank a liter of water after her workout.
They bought a 2-liter bottle of soda.
Hut.
They built a makeshift hut for shelter.
The fishermen lived in a small hut by the lake.
Intuition.
Her intuition told her something was wrong.
He trusted his intuition in making decisions.
Melodrama.
She enjoys the melodrama of old soap operas.
The movie was criticized for its melodrama.
Foreboding.
He had a sense of foreboding before the trip.
The dark clouds were a foreboding sign of the storm.
Remand.
He was remanded to appear in court next week.
The judge decided to remand the suspect in custody.
Megabyte.
The file size was about 1 megabyte.
Early computers had only a few megabytes of memory.
Antenna.
Insects have antennae to sense their environment.
The antenna on the roof improves the TV signal.
Chagrin.
To his chagrin, the plan failed spectacularly.
She felt chagrin when she realized her mistake.
Octagon.
The building had an octagon-shaped tower.
The stop sign is shaped like an octagon.
Bolster.
They used pillows to bolster the back of the couch.
His confidence was bolstered by the support of his friends.
Critic.
He is his own worst critic.
The movie critic gave the film a glowing review.
Outline.
She provided an outline of the project's main points.
The outline of the tree was visible against the sunset.
Manufacture.
They planned to manufacture furniture from recycled materials.
The factory will manufacture the new product.
Drape.
She chose to drape the curtains elegantly over the windows.
The scarf was draped casually around his neck.
Twinge.
A twinge of pain shot through his leg.
She felt a twinge of guilt after lying.
Pastoral.
The painting depicted a peaceful pastoral scene.
They enjoyed the pastoral beauty of the countryside.
Detonate.
The bomb squad worked to detonate the explosive device.
They had to detonate the old building safely.
Wistful.
She had a wistful look in her eyes.
He felt wistful thinking about his childhood.
Wooded.
The cabin was nestled in a quiet, wooded valley.
They went for a hike in the wooded area.
Bastion.
The castle was a bastion of medieval power.
He is considered a bastion of integrity in the community.
Redress.
The government promised to redress past injustices.
They sought to redress the grievances of the workers.
Peak.
Her curiosity was piqued by the mysterious letter.
He felt a sense of pique at the unfair criticism.
Esophagus.
The doctor examined her esophagus for any blockages.
Food passes through the esophagus to the stomach.
Whistle.
He heard a whistle from the nearby train.
She likes to whistle a tune while she works.
Implicit.
His silence was taken as implicit consent.
There was an implicit agreement between the partners.
Neighbor.
Their neighbor brought them a welcome gift.
They have a friendly relationship with their neighbor.
Gig.
He took on a gig as a freelance writer.
The band landed a gig at the local club.
Ethnography.
She conducted an ethnography of the rural community.
The ethnography provided deep insights into cultural practices.
Landscape.
They hired a professional to landscape their yard.
The landscape was dotted with beautiful wildflowers.
Bonnet.
She wore a charming bonnet to the picnic.
The car's bonnet was dented in the accident.
Wise.
It is wise to save money for the future.
The wise old man gave excellent advice.
Prophecy.
The ancient prophecy foretold a great change.
He didn't believe in the prophecy about his future.
Mechanize.
The factory's decision to mechanize led to increased production.
They decided to mechanize the farming process.
Ordeal.
The hike through the desert was an ordeal.
They endured a long ordeal during the trial.
Psychedelic.
He enjoys listening to psychedelic rock music.
The psychedelic colors of the painting were striking.
Eradicate.
Scientists are working to eradicate the disease.
They launched a campaign to eradicate poverty.
Feasible.
It is feasible to complete the project within the deadline.
The plan seemed feasible given the resources available.
Extrapolate.
They tried to extrapolate future trends from the data.
She could extrapolate his feelings from his behavior.
Sanctuary.
The wildlife sanctuary is home to many endangered species.
The church provided sanctuary to the refugees.
Database.
The company maintains a large customer database.
They used a database to organize the information.
Highway.
The highway was closed for repairs.
They drove down the highway at sunset.
Fluke.
Winning the lottery was a total fluke.
The unexpected victory was a fluke.
Piston.
He explained how the piston works in the car's engine.
The engine's piston moves up and down rapidly.
Speculate.
They began to speculate about the cause of the accident.
It's fun to speculate on what the future might hold.
Monogamy.
The bird species is known for its practice of monogamy.
They believe in monogamy and a committed relationship.
Technician.
The technician repaired the broken computer.
She called a technician to fix the air conditioner.
Clatter.
He heard the clatter of footsteps in the hallway.
The dishes made a loud clatter when they fell.
Shrub.
They planted a shrub in the front yard.
The garden was full of blooming shrubs.
Expo.
The expo showcased innovations from around the world.
They attended the Tech Expo to see the latest gadgets.
Paramount.
Safety is of paramount importance in this job.
The company's paramount goal is customer satisfaction.
Lipid.
They studied the role of lipid in human nutrition.
Lipid molecules are essential for cell membranes.
Attest.
I can attest to her dedication and hard work.
The certificate will attest to your qualifications.
Expel.
The factory's smokestack began to expel dark smoke.
The school decided to expel the student for misconduct.
Abide.
They must abide by the rules of the game.
I cannot abide by such unfair treatment.
Sullen.
The sullen teenager refused to talk to anyone.
He gave a sullen look after losing the game.